number three, the third big takeaway from that bill, which will have a dramatic impact, again, on costs for everyone in this room, is that the president really went after major solar and wind projects throughout the country, of which Michigan has a whole bunch that we've invested in. He decided that even though we need more energy as a country in general, we're all using more power than we ever did before, right? With these things and so much else. And artificial intelligence it uses even more energy than we usually do, right? So even though our energy diet is expanding, he wants to cut off certain types of energy because he's decided they're woke. He's decided that they're not enough oil and gas for him. There's something different. So you should hear the conversations I'm having in places like the UP, where they come up to me and they're like, well, we've got a wind project up here, but we're all conservatives. We're Republicans. We're not woke. I'm like, well, this is the point, is that he is making this ridiculous political association when we as Michiganders just need more energy and more clean energy. So a lot of those incentives for those projects are going away, and a lot of the solar and wind companies are turning to themselves and saying, should we continue our project? Is it worth it? Can we keep doing this? So those are the three big takeaways. Now, if we don't have those solar and wind projects coming on, and we have increasing demand for energy, what do you think happens? Price goes up, right? And is there anyone in Michigan who thinks they're paying too little for their energy bills, right? So again, for Donald Trump, whose central thesis, his central theme when he ran in November was he was going to lower your costs. In every single category, he is not lowering your costs, he is raising your costs. And what I'd ask you to do is just keep book on your own budget. You don't have to understand Washington and all the policy things going on in Washington. It is complex, but you know your own family budget. You know how much you save every month. You know how much your health care is, your utilities, your mortgage, or your rent. You keep book on yourself, and you have that honest conversation with yourself and with your neighbors about what he has done for costs. And you throw in a few tariffs, right? And you're having a very different conversation. He is costing you money. Now, I've been in Washington, as I said, 6-7 months as your senator. For some reason, I just had a birthday. I just turned 49, but I am the youngest Democratic woman in the U.S. Senate, which is absurd. Absurd. I tell people I am not young. I am young for the Senate. And they literally are like, hey, kid, come on in here. And, you know, I'm a former CIA officer. And when I was like a baby CIA officer, I was serving in Iraq. I did 3 tours alongside the military in Iraq. And some of the senators I serve with would come for a visit to Iraq. And I'd be the baby CIA analyst briefing them. And 20 years later, I am serving with them. They're still there, right? Now they pay more attention to me than they did when I was over there in Iraq. But I have to say that the divisions in that room among Democrats are no longer progressive Democrat versus moderate Democrat, right? That's the debate we've been having, you know, basically since 2016. That's like a very 2016, 2017 debate. The debate now among Democrats is, how do you answer the following question? Is Donald Trump an existential threat to democracy in his second term? Or is Donald Trump's second term, oh, I have a fly on me. Is Donald Trump's second term bad, but like his first term, survivable if we just wait it out, right? And I just want you to know from your senator, as someone who sits in that room on your behalf, I am in camp number 1. He is an existential threat to democracy. And what do you do as a national security person when something's a threat? You make a plan, right? I was in the Pentagon. You know, if you're sitting in Baghdad, if something is a threat to you, you don't just watch it. You don't just let it fester and get worse. You formulate a plan to counter it. So what I did a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, whatever it was, is I just sat down, and the same way that I did, I was given the opportunity to give the response to the State of the Union, right? I was completely shocked, was very surprised. I was given 6 days notice. So I decamped to my family farm in Holly, Michigan, with a few friends and advisors, and we wrote the response to the State of the Union in that time. My whole goal was just to not be a Saturday Night Live skit. That was my whole goal, and we achieved that goal. But it gave me some belief that if I sat down and thought through an economic war plan, that we could at least put out something that would allow us to go on offense and not just constantly play defense with Donald Trump, which is what we do a lot of, right? Is that. So very briefly, and then I want to open it up to however questions, whatever direction you want to go in. I believe that a huge reason that we find ourselves in this moment in history, that we have found ourselves, and especially as Michiganders, living in a world where we can't have a conversation with our neighbors about politics without it getting completely toxic and nasty. Some of us, know what it's like to have an uncomfortable Thanksgiving dinner where you just sort of understand that you can't talk about How many in the room have had an uncomfortable family meal in the past few years? Yeah, it's uncomfortable, right? Many of them, right? So why is it that we find ourselves in this moment? It never used to be so nasty, politics, right? My dad was a lifelong Republican, my mom a lifelong Democrat. I never remember they fought about other things. And in Michigan, we could fight over things like Michigan versus Michigan State more than we could about politics in the 80s or whatever. But now it's become so toxic. Why? My theory of the case is that we are at this moment in our history because for 30 years, the middle class has been shrinking in America. The power and the wealth that the middle class holds in this country, which was so powerful after World War II, is shrinking. And when people feel like they can't provide for their families, like they can't get into the middle class or stay in the middle class, they feel shame. They feel anger, they feel humiliation, and they start looking for someone to blame. They look for someone who doesn't look like them, doesn't sound like them, doesn't pray like them. And to me, this is, I live in Holly. And Holly, Trump won both times there, or 3 times there actually. I've never won my town. I've never won my precinct. I've never won my neighbors, right? I live on a dirt road. You all know what I'm talking about in this part of the state, right? And so what I see in places across the state are places where, maybe dad was in the middle class, but the son has fallen out. Granddad could have the fishing cabin up north, but the grandson can't afford to have the fishing cabin or take the kids up north. There is a sense of grievance and anger, and people look around for someone to blame. And they are being fed from the top by people telling them that it's okay to treat other people as the enemy. It's okay to use divisions between us as a tool, right? So what do? Because this place, as a multiracial, multi-ethnic experiment in democracy, if we are not a place where anyone from anywhere can get into the middle class, we're in trouble. We're in trouble as a state, as a country, in real trouble. So what do we do? Well, first of all, we got to acknowledge that is the essential problem in America. We have a lot of problems, don't get me wrong, but to me, this is the one that is going to be my life's work because my state invented the middle class, right? We invented this concept that you could work on the line at an auto plant and afford the car you were building. That is our thing. We taught the world that you could do that. And so we're not going to give up on the middle class, but it does mean we need to radically change how we think about jobs, good jobs, one job, jobs with dignity, with benefits, not 12 jobs pieced together with no benefits. We need to understand that that means we got to train our young people for the economy of the future. Artificial intelligence, it may seem far away, it is not. Okay, artificial intelligence is going to change our economy more than the internet did, which is crazy to think about. But it is coming, it is upon us, and we need our young people to have the training to meet the needs of that new world. Now, we're already seeing losses of jobs in places like Silicon Valley, and jobs of being a first round accountant. Those jobs are going away. And we may not be the first ones to lose those jobs, but we need to be prepared for the future. We need to understand that half of all Americans work for small businesses, and we can't be scared of supporting our small businesses. We want our businesses to succeed, and we need to make sure we have a regulatory environment that does that. We need to once and for all say that our supply chains need to be secure. We cannot be dependent on places like China for us to figure out how to build a car. Right? We cannot do that. And then right on down the line, we have to attack those things that are most commonly thought of as the American dream. We need to make sure those things are real. So think about buying a house. We have a housing emergency going on right now. We are short 4 million units of housing across the country. Okay, so if you figure out why a young family can't afford their first home, we do not have enough housing. We have basically stopped really building single-family homes that middle-class people can afford, right? And that does not work if we want people to achieve the American dream. We need, we talked about education. Let me say something very openly. We need an immigration system that works for us, for our economy, and for the immigrants wanting a better life. We need an immigration system. And if we want to grow as a state, we need to acknowledge we're getting older, right? Immigrants drive innovation, entrepreneurial activity. It is the story of most Americans. And so we need a system that actually works so legal, vetted immigrants can come work here and thrive. That's what we need, not what we're doing now. So we laid out in kind of chapter and verse what we need to do. And some of it is a little different, right? I mean, to me, we have to acknowledge that like our cell phones, this is not going to be popular with these three. I'm one of the first Democrats to say we need to ban cell phones in classrooms for K through 12 schools. And we need to see what's going on with our kids, right? We need to see the anxiety levels are through the roof. The mental health issues are through the roof. Are we just going to sit by and watch that happen, or are we going to tackle that problem? So to me, all of these things are about having something that we believe in instead of just pointing at Donald Trump and saying, no, he's bad, he's wrong. Yes, he is. But you can't win a game by playing defense only. You have to put out something that shows you're playing offense. Now, lastly, I will just say,